welcome back to Block TV, where it is time for Blockchain and Booze. That's where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere, get them drunk, and have them answer questions. Now today, a special edition, a wheeler of the sphere and two journalists, including one empty chair from Mati Greenspan. There we go. Okay, but I am blessed. I'm so lucky to have with us the man, the legend, the patient, Daniel Leon, co-founder and COO of the Celsius Network. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you, man.
Thank God for Ron Spitzer, because I love not being the one woman in the room. Very own Block TV's Ron Spitzer. Hello to you. And we cannot do this without the dashing and knowledgeable. Are you talking to me?
Are you drinking already?
I got to get the drinking part going, Yael. It's critical at this stage.
Entirely.
You know, we need to.
Asha Westrup Evans, senior correspondent, not just because he knows everything, but he's got the accent for it. Now, there we go.
That's how that works.
Folks, it was an insane goddamn week. We had news, we had everything. I want to talk price. Bitcoin sinking below 8. Tanking. I know that you are really worried about that. But all of this, Bitcoin price dropped suddenly over the course of 5 minutes. That's how fast it took. We know it crashed yesterday, but roughly 8% before settling in around 7,500. I think right now it's still dabbling around.
Yeah, around that area.
74.
Oh, 74.
Okay.
I was going to say 75. I was very
Okay,
optimistic.
folks. Theories, reasons. I just want to gesture, and I just want to say that as a conspiracy theorist, and who is also married to one, the fact that it happened about 5 minutes before the Libra hearing, you know what, rang bells in my head. Knock me down on this one.
Is that a conspiracy at this point? I think that might be just addressing the fact, look, there's a real world situation going on there. That's the macroeconomic picture in some way, shape, or form. This hearing had a lot of way and sway, and whether it was a whale who decided, you know, hey, I'm going to get in before this hearing goes bad and we all get alarmed, or whether it was just someone woke up that morning and thought today's an auspicious day and we want to sell, and a few people started ringing some bells. Who's to know? But the timing cannot be totally removed from the situation, even if that wasn't the main driver.
Well, which situation?
The Libra hearing on DC.
Facebook, yeah.
See, but a lot of people are like going, no, that has nothing to do with it.
It was hard to connect it to. I know there was a transcript that leaked, or at least some of his statements that were leaked before. So it's not that we entered into this hearing not knowing what he's about to say, or some of the pushback. What was weird is that 5 minutes before we were seeing this drop. So is that microeconomics? I mean, where's the stock market right now?
I know, but
how is microeconomics
Well, but it's
driving
also,
this
if you've
thing?
ever talked, I mean, I don't know about everybody else. I was really prepared for this because, you know, analysts.
prepared for the drop?
Yes, because, I mean,
Did
not
you short?
for the
Did you
5
short
minutes.
BTC?
Yeah, exactly.
Not for
Which is
the
what
5
I'm
minutes.
Short
If you
BTC.
talk to any analyst right now, everybody's saying we're going down. You know what I mean? It's not the most surprising thing in the world.
Yeah, but
It just
but
happens.
an
not
8% drop,
not
an
that
8%
kind of
drop.
drop. Exactly.
Bitcoin takes the stairs, not the elevator.
Not the elevator.
Okay, so
Yeah, that was sharp.
some whale was like, bye.
There were a
Okay,
few
let me,
big
you know
ones.
what, I'm wondering with you guys as well, because there are some people who claim that if it goes even lower, they'll buy. But how low do you think it can go?
I don't know. I mean,
Come
seriously.
on, you're dying to predict this.
Yeah, it's going to go down to 6. Why? I don't know. Honestly, I'm having a really hard time with people, including this fine gentleman we're going to discuss shortly, that says, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be this by October 5th. Oh, seriously, come on, haven't we learned?
Honey, I'm with you that there is no mechanism to the madness, and life is not a straight line, but that's a different discussion.
But in a speculative space, we like to speculate, you know?
That's true. But and also, there's another side to this that we need to note as well, because it wasn't all negative. On the other side of that, Backed did hit its all-time high yesterday. 640 contracts executed yesterday. Still nothing compared to CME. Still small potatoes, but tripling its previous all-time high. I think it was 224 before that. 640 yesterday. There is some positive growth. You know, price is not the only indicator.
But that's the craziness, right?
You're buying the dip.
48 hours after Backed went live. People were like, oh, there's not enough there. Let's
Exactly.
sell.
Plus,
But where's patience?
Right.
I mean, like,
Oh,
oh, now it's
honey.
hitting a whole-time high. Let's buy. Once again, I mean, I'm really
I know we're
struggling with this.
I don't know what Mati thinks, but yeah.
Crickets in the air.
Let's turn to Mati and see what. No, okay, whatever. Moving ahead with. It wasn't just for our sphere. Mark Zuckerberg, up the hill, is mainstream mania. Okay, this is one of the most powerful people in the world. He went to Washington, something that I personally didn't think he was going to do, because last time he was there, it didn't fare so well from a PR standpoint, and that was the Cambridge Analytica that didn't look good. Zuckerberg says Libra will not move ahead without U.S. regulator approval. We at BLOCKTV here covered that entire event live yesterday. 6 hours of grilling, a lot of it grandstanding. He was blamed for everything from child pornography to nearly cancer, that I invented, of course, but a lot of congressmen and women wanted to hear themselves. That said, he did come out with one promise that's quite striking, and that is promising to pull out of Libra if regulators do not comply. Let's have a listen to that moment on the Hill.
You also noted in your testimony today that you're going to be looking for U.S. regulatory approval in terms of AML, BSA, to be able to make sure that Facebook, for its part, within the association, will continue to participate. If the Libra Association can't satisfy those regulations with the U.S. regulations are in place, will Calibra pull out of the association?
Congressman, the short answer would be yes. If we don't come up with a solution that gets the U.S. regulatory approval, then presumably we'll continue working on the proposal until we can, but we're not going to launch anything that doesn't have U.S. regulatory approval.
So the wallet portion of this you would pull out?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
You would pull out on the wallet portion of this with the Calibra?
The case that I was referring to before where we might be required to pull out is if the association independently decides to move forward on something that we're not comfortable with. But right now, I think my understanding is that everyone is aligned on making sure that we have U.S. regulatory approval to launch anywhere in the world, and that's the goal and that's the plan.
I want to start with you because I'm asking before you start. From a PR point of view, is he a good candidate on a chair?
Is he a good candidate on
a chair?
Meaning what, sorry?
Meaning PR-wise, would you put him out there?
Look,
Come on, be honest.
I think, look, to be honest, when Facebook came out with Libra, I felt that this was the first time that mainstream is coming to term and with this whole notion of crypto. I remember that, I've reached out to a lot of people and said, I'm in crypto. Like, we don't care. Instead, Zuck is coming out with Libra, and they're like, suddenly people picking up the phone saying, okay, let's meet. Yeah. We want to learn a bit more. We knew that there is a double-edged sword, right? That if it comes out and it gets rejected, it's not going to do well for us. Having said that, 2 billion people around the world today know what crypto is. Prior to that, they didn't. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, true.
Having said that, I heard a lot of people who say, Zach didn't know what he was getting himself into. They did not predict the backlash. That's BS. I'm sorry. This is Zuckerberg. This is Facebook.
I tend to agree. I don't think they do anything
confronted with all this backlash before about different issues. To think that regulators are going to say, okay, and give him, on top of all the power that he's got, also the power to become almost de facto the World Bank. Come on, we knew he's going to be, and he knew, and you knew it too. He's been advised by top attorneys. He knew what he was getting himself into. Zuckerberg had 2 goals yesterday. One is to assure regulators that Facebook is not Libra, that through that association, they are kind of remote from it. I don't think he's done a good job ensuring that.
And plus, come on. Do we think
plus,
that's,
come
on.
Plus,
okay,
come on.
Yeah.
And number 2, and I think the biggest issue when you talk to regulators, and Celsius has been kind of, we've been thinking about the same issues. An American company, it's all about AML compliance, right? Can you ensure us regulators when person X transfer money to person Y that person X is indeed person X, right? And you saw it kind of danced around that. He did not give this unequivocal answer that we will make sure that unless we verify your identity, you cannot use this thing, right? And as far as the breaking news of, we will quit if this thing doesn't work, don't hold your breath, right? I mean, I wouldn't.
I mean, with the way he explained that, he
That's right.
explained it a couple
We heard it in the video, right?
No, not only
can
it's
you
my
Senator, can you
understanding.
repeat? Exactly.
You don't know.
Exactly.
It's the language.
But then he was referring in that same clip to the previous person who mentioned
Exactly.
such a thing, in which he kind of said, if the association as a whole isn't, if those people that are in the association don't exactly agree, he really swam around
it. It smacks to me as a little disingenuous when he's saying, as Facebook, as creators of Libra, it's almost like saying, if my left hand were to actually break your nose, I'd be really upset with it. I would disassociate. I would condemn it. I mean, come on, man. Like, you guys are the creators, the founders of this project, and I really respect that you've now signed a charter, made a board with 20, not 27 other organizations. That David Marcus is still chairman of the board, and he's still, a former Facebook employee.
But I don't know. It appeared to me that he didn't come prepared. Right, he wasn't really prepared. This was not.
It's a fascinating issue because I felt the same way also with Cambridge Analytica, and again yesterday, and I truly think, and I told Usher earlier today, look, it's a little bit unfair because there was a lot of political grandstanding in Congress across from him with a lot of people that know that it's an election year. And they weren't really asking him questions. Many of them were giving speeches for constituencies,
exactly.
and to get elected again or to run. So it's
one person asked him about vaccinations. Are you?
That's when we were like, fuck this. I mean, come on.
But, does he need to be prepared in the sense of? With these congressional hearings, it's a war of attrition, right? You just survive the 6 hours and then you get to leave. At the end of the day, they can't hold you. It's not a court of law. They can't hold you for a longer period of time. After which point, the questions get sent in by letter, and the lawyers handle it.
That's a conversation we were having earlier. Basically, that's what it felt like. You say unprepared, I say dragging it out until those 5 minutes are over. That's all. Like that was the goal there.
With a bathroom break.
With a bathroom break. That was the goal. And my question to all of you guys, because he did, at the end of the day, and I can't believe I'm defending the Zuck, but at the end of the day, he did raise some very, very important. I think that it all boils down to that, on how unprepared the United States is, and I don't think people realize in the Western world that, technologically speaking, we are so bloody behind. And he actually said that. Let's have a listen to Zuckerberg with the following criticism in a very bizarre way towards the American system at this point.
I'm generally in favor of ideas and innovation all across the space. I think that the U.S. Financial industry, and especially the infrastructure on top of which to build financial services, is just frankly behind where it needs to be to innovate and continue American financial leadership going forward.
He's entirely right.
He is right. The question is Libra the answer?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But
isn't Libra the one platform American, I'm going to argue for his case right now, that is ready to do this, has access to 2.3 billion people, and at the end of the day, people, come on.
That's what he said. That's what he said. That's so
I'm backing up his case.
But what is the cost of allowing him to do this? Look, I've been thinking about this, and in my opinion, Facebook wants to do this for two reasons. Maybe the more tactical one is that they really want to kind of close the circle. So think about this: when you look at an ad, watch an ad on Facebook, you click on it. Hopefully, Facebook thinks that you have the intent to purchase.
Right.
In their ideal world, they would love to close the circle.
And that you actually purchase.
Exactly. I saw an ad for Nike. I went to a Nike store. Yes, the GPS knew I was there, but the GPS doesn't know that I actually purchased. Right. Imagine a world that he can actually tie the ad to an actual purchase. That's the kind of the wet dream. The second thing is, considering all the backlash, he wants to build leverage against governments. Now imagine that you've got, in this basket of currencies, the euro or the yen or whatnot, and the Japanese government says to him, "We're not comfortable with your privacy." He's like, "Oh, okay, no problem. Do you remember that yen that we've got, a few hundred million sitting in our wallet? That's sitting backing Libra. Ain't gonna happen again." So that's a lot of leverage. Right. Is the system behind? Yes. Is Facebook the answer, given all the power that they've got? I'm not so sure.
Right, I agree. When you're talking about a company with already such established power, so many of the great innovations in a number of different sectors have come from private innovators in the United States. Credit to them. The taxi industry was overhauled by Uber. The rental
Some
industry.
will say in a very bloody way.
Well, perhaps so. But the rental industry was overhauled by Airbnb. These companies that came out and did amazing things, but they did usually, or at least in some degree, they didn't start off as behemoth organizations. They came in with an
Small.
idea, it was revolutionary, they developed it from the ground up, and they were able to be regulated as they grew. Maybe well, maybe not well, but the point was regulators and other industries were there to check them. No one's big enough to check Facebook if they do go ahead and launch this. And I think that nightmare scenario where countries have to go, that Daniel pointed out, where countries have to answer to Facebook or to Libra and go, we have to talk with you before we decide on our central bank policies.
You mean the Philip K. Dick world?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that sounds pretty terrifying to a lot of central bankers.
But if this is a race, again, I'm playing devil's advocate, okay? If this is a race, and it is a race, at the end of the day, it's a political race. It's not just a monetary race. It's who gets, the people, there's this old saying that he who's in charge of production is in charge of, it wins the race, apropos China. I'm leading to China.
Right.
In China, everything goes through this. They're 5 to 6 years ahead of all of us sitting on the other side of the world, building on these things as well. Maybe because of that, which to me that was surprising that Zuckerberg didn't make that case, to say, I almost thought he was going to go there, to say, look, I know I'm not your best choice, but I'm set to do this. I'm in place to do this.
So what we're seeing now is that there is a battle between governments, the US government that knows that China is moving forward with its own digital currency. The US doesn't want to stay behind. Government is heading that direction. We see a corporation from Merrill Lynch to Wells Fargo to Walmart and now to Facebook that says, well, that is the future. And then we've got community, decentralization, like BTC and so on and so forth. I think crypto, digital currency, digital assets are here to stay. The question is who's going to win.
Exactly.
Will that be governments? Will that be corporation? Or will that be decentralized projects? And when you talk about winning, I think we are here to win the hearts of mind, and it's all about trust, right? Who can we trust? Can we trust government with monetary policies that are eroding the value of our savings accounts and so on and so forth? Can we trust Facebook and the various banking institutions? Or can we trust the one asset? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. But over the long term, we believe that digital currencies, that they are decentralized like BTC, that are focused on store of value, right? That's what's going to win. We just, as a community, as people, we have to have some patience. And let's see how this thing is going to fall.
Spoken like a true parent.
We talked about kids earlier.
No, but patience comes, sadly, patience comes with time. One last exchange that Mati Greenspan, sitting here, very much wanted us all to hear. Let's have a listen. The last exchange from
Libra's been in the works within Facebook for the past year. And since the announcement of the potential members, PayPal, Stripe, Visa, MasterCard, and eBay have walked away from the association due to various regulatory and political concerns. Now, it's notable that every U.S. payment processor has exited the association. Unlike current Libra Association members like Uber and Lyft and various venture capital firms, payment processors were given one of the most difficult tasks when it comes to digital assets, and that's anti-money laundering and know your customer compliance. So with no major U.S. payment processors left in the Libra Association, how do you see the Libra Association building a compliance regime that adheres to the AML, BSA, or the anti-money laundering know your customer provisions that this body has worked hard to put into place?
Congressman, thank you. So my understanding is there are still payment companies that are part of the association, and of course David Marcus, who runs the Calibra subsidiary for Facebook, has run large financial services companies. He was the president of PayPal before coming to Facebook. So I think we have the right expertise to work through these problems, and we will work with regulators to come up with solutions on them.
Speaking of the AML issue.
What's the question?
To conclude, just as I asked Asher today, do you see, I don't think, I actually think this thing is in the bag, apropos, conspiracy theories. I'm always suspicious. But do you think Libra is happening at all? There are those who claim it's DOA.
I think that a version of Libra will happen.
Okay.
A version of Libra will happen. And I think that for the US government and regulators to approve something like this, if there's one thing that Facebook, Libra, Calibra have to fix, is this AML compliance issue, right? Because that's the one thing that is paramount in their minds, right? How do we make sure that a drug dealer or a terrorist or whatnot is leveraging that system to hurt Americans.
Nobody has ever managed to do that entirely. Also, I have to say, with fiat. I mean,
that's
one of the
right.
challenges.
But it makes things so much easier.
And then their kind of divergence around that is by saying, yes, Libra, our wallet, will be in compliance, but if our users Libra users take on a different wallet, we don't promise that will be.
And we can't do anything.
And I think one
about
senator
that.
he said it perfectly yesterday, as opposed to, how are they going to get across this regulation thing? No, you're going to some government body will have some sort of resource like CFTC or whatever it is that they're dealing with. Right. That isn't us. These lawmakers in this room will say that technically your lawyers will find a technicality that'll say, oh, look, you are right. And then you're going to go ahead anyway. So it's irrelevant.
Folks, the only thing I can conclude this before we move on to Tom Lee, a man who had a better week than Zuckerberg, is that, look, he sat there, he stood that fire, but as you said, it's far from happening. Time will tell what type of version of it comes out. But moving along, back to Bitcoin, for which, the reason we gathered here today, or at all. Much of what we talk about is chances of growth in Bitcoin investment by institutions. This week we had a chance to speak with Tom Lee. He's the Fundstrat analyst, very well respected in mainstream. Had some really, really stark, some really depressing, one may argue, predictions for Bitcoin and institutional adoption. Let's hear what he had to say about the idea of an ETF. And you think that an ETF approval is years away?
Yes, we've written about this, and so our clients are aware that there's really two reasons we think it's years away. One is Bitcoin's size today is too small. As a under $200 billion network value, and with block rewards of only $5 or $10 million a day, an ETF is likely to generate close to $13 billion of demand the first year. And that's a massive demand imbalance to available supply. And so if you were to try to do a equilibrium price required, Bitcoin's price needs to be about $150,000 to be liquid enough to handle what would be expected to be an ETF.
Bring it on, I'm ready. $150,000, here we come. I agree with you, Tom. Let's get it there,
Well, I mean, look,
I'm going to ruin this party despite the wonderful alcohol. And you do know how to...
I do know how to mix the margarita, indeed.
I think that ETF will be approved when people like this fine gentleman and others are going to stop going on TV and saying when Bitcoin will breach this level at this time, we will see ETF. I mean, enough. Right? The reason that we're having these assumptions and projections is because there are no fundamentals, right? And
the fundamentals need to come from.
It's exactly right. So enough. Every day you wake up to another article. Bitcoin will be X when this thing will happen. Paul Krugman, Nobel winner of Nobel, said years ago that the internet is no threat to the fax machine. So he said. And he won the Nobel Prize, the economic. Right. So he said.
There's a phrase in Yiddish, hot gezoek.
That's exactly true.
That said, he also argued, I know that, a very respected, well-known voice, and I think that's the power, that's the battle between the old school and the sphere at the end of the day, folks. He also said, though, that there are not enough people dabbling in this.
Right. Why?
He's right in that.
And why? Because of the use case. Because there's no use case just yet. And when we talk about patience and parenthood, right? We need that use case, and it will come. It won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen next month. It's a matter of time. But when it comes, it will bring enough people into Bitcoin, and we're going to have less and less people talking about when that price will reach X point.
But is that, I hear that said so many times in so many different places, but is that really, are we waiting for that one crack? Is it the chink in the armor, and then we dive through and suddenly there's a wide-scale mass adoption throughout the industry, or is this a steady growth process? That's what I'm confused about.
The question is, what's healthy?
Right.
Right? And
why isn't Bitcoin itself the use case? I'm sorry to ask.
Why Bitcoin? Ask Dr. Doom. He kind of talks a lot about this. Right?
Think about it. Why isn't that the use case? It's survived.
Bitcoin is not the use case because it's still complicated to use.
Okay.
Right. Even with Celsius, we're working a lot about making it easier to transfer and eventually to buy. It's still hard, right? And the reason why would I do that. We talked about store of value, but let's see some stability to get enough people to go out there and get store of value. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this upcoming recession, right? Are we going to have recession? Will Bitcoin be able to serve as this safe haven in a way when it comes to store of value? It'll be interesting to see. Let's talk in a year from now if this recession is coming, and see if that would be enough to convince enough people to get into BTC like some people are getting
I
into
wish we
gold
didn't
right now.
have to wait for,
That is
that's my, I think one of the problems of the sphere is, okay, if everything crashes, people, will become more intelligent, will get it.
But it's an innovation. I mean, it is a new thing, and innovation requires, I think the vast majority of the world right now, particularly those in the financial world, have an attitude of it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The current system, it's not perfect, it has its problems, it has its issues, but at the end of the day, I can still, as Daniel said, it's easy to use. I can still get my money from where I need to, from A to B. Maybe it's a bit slower than I'd appreciate.
Well, but then,
the masses understand it.
But in that same breath, he also was saying that the SEC chair just does not want to, they don't want this decision to fall on them. And you can kind of feel that in general, right? These delays. Why not just reject if you don't want it? So it seems like something with this particular administration is
But the SEC is more than one guy, right? We're talking about a group of people. What is that, 6 people, if I'm not mistaken? Right, so we'll see.
I know, and we have to remember also the SEC, somebody said that to me the other day, which actually put me in place, was you have to remember the SEC is a lot of shit to deal with, not just this.
And as well...
That said, that said, guys, I want to move us along, and maybe even and I want to move us along because we had such an intense week, and one of our reporters, Zaki Hennessy, who has been raised by Usher, managed to book the one and only Mr. McAfee. Now, if you have been a fan of cryptocurrency, and even if you're not in the sphere, love him or hate him, McAfee is quite the character. He's made a few noteworthy developments in the crypto industry, but above all, he certainly is responsible for helping, usher in a new crowd of users, but he now has launched also in beta phase the McAfee DEX. And he told us about it from, how should I describe his room?
The tinfoil room?
The tinfoil room.
So here's, room.
Yeah, there you go. The towel, I would have gone with towel. So here's McAfee explaining the DEX to us. Yes, it's in beta right now. The idea to go completely live is when?
Okay, so here's our thing. We went beta with the Ethereum blockchain just because it's the largest number of tokens, thousands. Okay, so there was a good test for us. It was a good volume test. So we learned a lot. We fixed our speed. We've done a whole bunch of things. On the 8th of November, we'll add the Tron blockchain. On the 1st of January, we'll add Binance, EOS, and NEO. And then the 1st of May, we will go live with cross chains between all of these separate blockchains. We will, in fact, be the equivalent of Binance, only we're distributed and decentralized. It doesn't cost anything to list a coin on our exchange. We have a button at the top of the page that says Add Token. Press it, put in the technical details of your token, and you're listed.
So many people.
We're glad to have Matty here. It's just on time. Your timing is perfect.
I think you need to catch up. Oh my God, and you don't really have a cup. There you go.
There you go.
Yes.
Sharing is caring.
This is what happens when you're late, my dear man.
I'm so sorry about
We were
that.
waiting for you.
You have a shared cup.
So, would you buy a loaf of bread from this guy?
I don't know. I went to his exchange. It was a ghost town. I think I had a few warnings from the browser. No warnings. I would like to see some disclaimers, please, Mr. McAfee. There are a lot of shitcoins and scams on your site. At least have a pop-up that says so. Thank you.
No, but
He is promising to be.
Why? He pretty much said that. No, he pretty much said
He
that.
said
He was
it
like,
in
if
the
you have a
interview,
coin.
but it should say it on the website.
All right, you should put the interview on the website.
Okay,
That's fine.
yes, do that, McAfee. Do it.
And just because we have you, Mati, that you graced us with your presence, I just want to, really quickly from you to try and understand this mass drop we saw in 5 minutes yesterday of Bitcoin. Libra related?
It could be. The drop clearly happened before the congressional hearing started. We saw a massive rise in volume as well. What I feel happened was a simple breakout of the support level. There was a support that's been building up over the last few weeks. as we know, traders like to put a lot of emphasis on those levels, and they took it a little bit farther down. And after that, nobody really knew what was happening, so it stayed put. So most likely, it's just a technical move. The coincidence of it happening with Libra, I think, is significant because it gives kind of a backdrop for the movement, but not more than that.
Yeah, okay. And then
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. And Libra, nothing to do with it?
It does. It has something to do with it. I mean, Libra is
hearing,
a main
the fact-
narrative.
exactly, the
I
narrative
think
was
that
24
probably
hours
people
within
were
the-
getting excited because it was about to happen. They were sitting in front of their screens. Traders were watching because of that. If it wasn't any other day, they might have been, they might have had their computer off at that exact moment. But it is the backdrop. There's the fundamental backdrop, but I believe that the move was mainly based on technical reasons.
Really quickly, did you watch the hearing yesterday?
Most of it, yeah.
Okay, what's your take on it?
Congress
6
is
hours?
not.
I know,
Most of it, yeah,
they
it
lost
was
me
on,
an
I was-
usher at
yeah.
vaccination. We were like, come on.
My baby was sick, and
Bit of compelling television.
and I live tweeted some of it. But you know what? There was one representative I felt who kind of hit the nail on the head. Half of the questions were either unrelated or showed that they didn't understand the technicals
Or
of
just
what
they wanted to hear their voice.
Congress is not ready yet. They're just not ready. The United States government does not have their act together, and that's why they're falling behind.
Yeah, I'm going to go back on that happy note. We're going to go back
Hashtag
really
truth.
quickly to McAfee. Just really quickly, because look, we had McAfee on this week as well.
I saw that.
I know.
Amazing.
And I just want to say that
When is Zachy going over to meet him?
I packed his bag. He doesn't understand that he's going. I know,
I'll
exactly.
go with them. That sounds like fun.
Thank you.
I've been saying it for a year. I'll go on the boat, McAfee. You don't
And
have
maybe
to.
the
have
reason
to
Zachy
convince
is
me.
so afraid is because of the following clip, because we tried to figure out, we put the thing out, McAfee's on our air, maybe he knows who Satoshi is. Zachy put that question out to him. This is how it came down.
When you confirmed this interview, I shit my pants, and then I went ahead and posted a video on Twitter asking anybody if they had any questions for you. And they do indeed have questions for you. That question comes from Todd Simmons 4. The 4 is important. He says, ask him who Satoshi is, and then 9 crying laughter emojis, which I assume just gives a kind of idea of the depth and the gravity of the situation.
Oh, please tell us.
Yes. You want to answer?
Sure.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Listen. Okay, first of all, we know all the players that were involved in the creation of Bitcoin. I mean, starting with Dr. Adam Back in his 1985 paper about hashing and potential electronic currencies. We know the players, even Craig Wright, played a very important role. Satoshi is merely the jerk that wrote the white paper for it. And that's not Craig Wright. All right? And you want to know who it is? Please, God, buy some authoring software. Get the white paper. Do an input 1 from the white paper, input 2, because everybody involved in the creation of Bitcoin has written hundreds of technical papers. Take a technical paper and do an authorship compare.
All right, John.
It'll give you 99% guarantee who it is. Yes.
I have a completely different question about this. Do you think this man will ever be president?
That would be sad.
Why not?
I think it's a complete
The
possibility.
guy is
After
wearing
Donald Trump,
reflective-
right? After I think if there's one thing Donald Trump has taught us all is that,
That anybody can be
anybody
president.
can.
The guy's wearing reflective
That's a
glasses
sense.
while
Any
trying to
billionaire
hide
can
his
be
That is very
president.
location.
Any billionaire can be president. So, yeah.
No, he cannot be president.
I'll bet you money right here.
As much as you want and more.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's no way. First of all, you have to understand the political landscape in the United States.
I do.
I vote libertarian consistently and continuously get disappointed. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. You have a house divided amongst itself.
I'm
In the
gonna
words of
have
Thomas Jefferson.
one very controversial recommendation to the editors and producers of BLOCKTV.
Please.
If you guys want to do well for crypto, and if you guys want to get the next 100 million people into crypto,
Okay.
you got to show this guy's far less. You got to talk about him far less. I wasn't joking when I said, no, let me say, I said I'm going to be controversial now.
Amen.
I'm right.
controversial by mainstreaming it.
This is not the face of crypto.
I agree with you.
Right? I mean, seriously, during the blockchain on Boost Live, right? You asked this question, and I was, since I don't have any sense of humor, I think one of the question was, who do you want to,
to be the face of
and I picked a president that I don't necessarily like, but I really think that we need people like Barack Obama, right? We need people. If we want to get this to the masses, right? This is not the dude.
I would argue, if we had time, we would argue differently with you, because we're currently living in a world where this sells, because the President of the United States right now.
Does it sell? Does this
working
sell?
for him so far.
For whom?
I'm talking about
Does
for
it
him.
work for us?
him.
For him.
For him.
Right? But this is not about him. What we're doing here is not about him. What we're doing here is to get this to the masses. And I wouldn't buy anything from this guy.
I agree.
And many people disagree because they're doing it. Not
How
because
many
not
people?
because I
How
think you're
many
wrong.
people? How many
But
people?
you would also not
truly
buy
disagree?
anything from Mark Zuckerberg. Here's the thing.
Would
you?
Why people buy from him all the time?
But you weren't here for the beginning of the discussion.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Damn it.
That's it, because something happens
your
when you
fault.
walk in.
Yeah.
But so
There
that's
you
another
go.
question. Okay. But let's talk Ripple, because Ripple is trying to sell itself. And apropos, if we want to get to 100,000 people for adoption, I just want to let you know that these two amazing journalists are part of a team. Thank you.
Yes.
That took a look at the following Ripple commercial, okay, which I want us to show right now. Where's the original Ripple commercial? There we go.
He's got it.
I've got it.
ได้แล้ว
เราได้แล้ว They got it.
They got it. I got it.
Okay, not a bad commercial.
Just a bit long. Just a bit
Just
long.
a bit long. People love to hate on XRP. Okay, they love to shit on it. And we think that's not fair. And we think that this commercial is not just as perfect as it could be. Yes, Usher agrees. If I can just show the control room right now. So we went to the best in the business, really the best, the most experienced, oldest in the business, exactly. And we had them write the following commercial for Ripple. With that, I want to thank you, Mati. Thank you for being on time. I want to thank you all for being on this panel today. Daniel Leon, you rock. You two people are my favorite. This is BLOCKTV's version for the Ripple commercial. So much better. We were blockchain and boots. Here you go.
Hey Ashley, you see this new Ripple ad?
Got it.
ได้แล้ว
Got it.
They got it.
Got it.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter